A glass shattered against the polished marble floor. The sharp crack cut through the quiet restaurant like a gunshot. Everyone turned. Your translator is lying. The words burst out before Maya could stop herself. For a second, the entire room froze. A dozen eyes swung toward her. The men at the private table stopped talking immediately. The bodyguards standing behind them stiffened, their hands drifting instinctively toward their jackets. The translator slowly turned his head, and at the center of the table, the man everyone else seemed to orbit around lifted his gaze. Kang Minho. Even seated, he carried a quiet authority that made the air feel heavier, tall, calm, impossibly still. The kind of man people didn't interrupt. Maya felt the blood drain from her face the moment the words left her mouth. Her tray slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor beside the broken glass. "Oh my God," she whispered under her breath. What had she just done? She hadn't planned to speak. She hadn't even meant to get involved, but once she heard the mistranslation, once she realized what was happening, her mouth had moved before her brain could stop it. Now 12 very dangerous men were staring directly at her. The restaurant manager near the entrance looked like he might faint. "Maya," he whispered harshly. "What are you doing?" One of the bodyguards stepped forward. "You should leave," he said coldly. But Minho raised one finger. The guard stopped instantly. The room went silent again. Minho's dark eyes settled on Maya. "Come here," he said calmly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried across the room like a command. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. Every instinct told her to run, but her legs didn't move because somehow the way he said it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a decision. Slowly, she walked toward the table. Every step felt heavier than the last. She could feel the translator's eyes burning into her, and they weren't friendly. When she reached the table, she forced herself to stand straight even though her hands were trembling. Minho studied her for a long moment. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. Sharp features, dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. "What did you say?" he asked quietly. Maya swallowed. "I said," her voice wavered, "your translator is lying to you." The translator let out a short laugh. "This is ridiculous," he said quickly in Korean. "She must have misunderstood. She's a waitress." Then he switched to English for the foreign businessman sitting across the table. "She says she dropped the drinks," he translated smoothly. Minho didn't even look at him. His eyes remained on Maya. "You speak Korean?" he asked. Maya nodded slowly. "Yes," the translator scoffed. "Many foreigners learn basic phrases. It doesn't mean she understands business language." Maya turned to him, anger suddenly bubbling up through her fear. "I understand perfectly," she said. The translator's smile tightened. Minho leaned back slightly in his chair. "Then tell me," he said, "what exactly did he lie about?" Maya hesitated. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. If she was wrong, if she misunderstood even a single sentence, these men could destroy her life. But she knew what she heard. She had grown up with languages all around her. Her mother was Nigerian. Her father had been a Korean linguistics professor. She had spent half her childhood translating conversations for relatives who couldn't understand each other. People always assumed she didn't understand Korean because of how she looked. She was used to it. Tonight, it had just gone too far. She took a deep breath. "You told them the shipment would arrive next Thursday," she said, looking at Minho. Minho nodded slowly. "I did." She pointed toward the translator. "But he told them you said the shipment was already here and that you wanted payment tonight." The two businessmen across the table frowned. They exchanged a quick glance. Minho's eyes shifted toward his translator. The man's smile didn't move. "She misunderstood," he said smoothly. "The conversation is complicated." "No," Maya said quickly. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. "That's not all." The room felt colder. Minho gestured slightly. "Continue," Maya swallowed. "You also said," she continued slowly, "that you were willing to lower the price if they agreed to a long-term partnership." The businessman leaned forward slightly. The translator spoke again. "I told them exactly that." "You told them he said the price was final," Maya cut in. The translator's face darkened. "You should be careful what accusations you make." Maya's hands trembled, but something about his tone made her even angrier. "I heard you," she said firmly. The room fell silent again. Minho tapped his finger once on the table. Then he looked at the businessman. "What were you told?" he asked in Korean. One of them answered slowly. He said the shipment was already in the city and that if we didn't pay tonight, the deal was off. Minho's expression didn't change, but the temperature of the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. He turned back to the translator. Explain. The man chuckled nervously. There must have been a misunderstanding. Minho lifted his hand again. Two bodyguards stepped forward instantly. The translator's voice died in his throat. Minho spoke quietly. Repeat the last 10 minutes of the conversation, he said. The translator hesitated. Then he began speaking again, carefully repeating the Korean sentences Minho had originally said. When he finished, Minho turned toward Maya. Translate what he just said, he ordered. Maya blinked. You want me to? Translate. Her throat went dry, but she obeyed. Word for word, she repeated the exact meaning in English. Every sentence, every detail. When she finished, the businessmen were staring at the translator with cold expressions. That, one of them said slowly, is not what you told us. The translator's face had gone pale. Minho leaned forward slightly. Interesting. He turned his head toward the translator. Why would you change the terms of my deal? The man's voice shook. I didn't. One of the bodyguards suddenly slammed a hand on the translator's shoulder. Hard. The man flinched. Minho's eyes were calm. Too calm. Let me ask again, he said softly. Why would you change my words? The translator's breathing quickened. I was just trying to speed up negotiations. Minho smiled faintly, but it wasn't a warm smile. You were trying to start a fight. Silence filled the room. The businessmen looked furious now. You told us he was threatening us, one of them said sharply. The translator's lips trembled. Minho leaned back again, studying him like a puzzle he had already solved. How long? Minho asked. The translator blinked. What? How long have you been working for them? The man froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Minho tilted his head slightly. Then you won't mind if we call the number you texted 20 minutes ago. The translator's face went completely white. Maya felt her stomach drop. Minho had already known. The bodyguards tightened their grip on the man's arms. The translator finally broke. Wait, he shouted. His voice cracked with panic. I can explain. Minho didn't look surprised. Please do. The man's eyes darted around the room desperately. They forced me, he stammered. A rival group approached me. They said if I didn't help sabotage the deal, they would. Minho raised his hand again. The translator fell silent instantly. Minho exhaled slowly. You were willing to start a war over money. The man's voice shook violently. I didn't think anyone would notice. Minho's gaze flicked toward Maya. For the first time since she spoke, their eyes met fully. His expression softened slightly. You were wrong, he said quietly. The bodyguards pulled the translator away from the table. The man's voice echoed down the hallway as he begged. Please, I have a family. I'll fix it. The door closed behind them. The restaurant became silent again. Maya suddenly realized she was still standing there. Her knees felt weak. Minho turned back toward the businessmen. It seems, he said calmly, we had a traitor in the room. They nodded stiffly. Yes, one of them said. And your waitress saved this deal. Minho looked up at Maya again. His gaze was thoughtful now. Not cold, not angry, curious. What is your name? He asked. Maya, she answered quietly. Maya, he repeated. The way he said it made her heart skip nervously. He gestured toward the empty chair beside him. Sit. Her eyes widened. Oh, no, I can't. Sit. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't a suggestion either. Slowly, she lowered herself into the chair. Her pulse raced. Minho folded his hands together. Why did you interfere? He asked. You could have ignored it. Maya looked down at her hands. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. Minho studied her. You risked your job. She shrugged weakly. My manager already wants to fire me. You risked your life. That made her look up. Their eyes met again. I didn't think about that part, she admitted softly. Something flickered in his expression. Almost amusement. The businessman chuckled quietly. You are very brave, one of them said. Maya laughed nervously. I'm actually terrified. Minho's lips curved slightly. Then he asked the question she didn't expect. How long have you been in Korea? 3 years. And you work here as a waitress? Yes. He leaned back again, still studying her. You speak Korean better than most translators I've hired. Maya rubbed the back of her neck. My dad was Korean. Minho raised an eyebrow. Was? He passed away, she said softly. Something in the room shifted. Minho nodded slowly. I see. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Minho made a quiet decision. You will not return to serving tables tomorrow. Maya blinked. I what? You will work for me instead. Her mouth fell open. I'm sorry. What? Minho's tone remained calm. You already proved something very important tonight. And what's that? She asked cautiously. He looked directly at her. That you're willing to speak the truth in a room full of dangerous men. Maya let out a shaky laugh. That was actually a very bad survival decision. The businessman laughed. But Minho didn't. On the contrary, he said quietly, it may have been the best decision you ever made.